Bring back those love songs, those 90s love songs. It feels like R&B has been getting hated on a lot lately. I keep hearing these opinions saying, dang, these kids don't know nothing about love nowadays. That's what's wrong now. What happened to Singing in the Rain? Why ain't nobody on the floor begging for forgiveness no more? And I'm like, what do you mean? What, like, are we missing something? You know what I mean? There's been this ongoing narrative claiming that real R&B is dead because, you know, of Gen Z and those millennials. I keep wondering where these opinions are even coming from. Why do people keep saying that R&B is too toxic? When SZA said, I might kill my ex, she was just playing. Okay, when Brent Faiyaz said, darling, I don't wish you well. When you ain't with me, I want you crying. He was telling a little jokey joke, okay? He was not serious. And when Division said, if I get caught cheating, that don't mean I don't love you. Okay, you know what? I guess I can see where these opinions are coming from. From first listen, one may assume we're living in such a toxic time for music, especially for the genre that's known for its love songs. But hasn't it always been this way? Aren't artists just being honest? Is it rap music's fault? What exactly happened to R&B? Before we move on with this conversation, I had to put this disclaimer in there, okay? We know, you and I, we know that R&B has never been one size fits all, okay? It's always been music for the soul, the very complicated soul. It's covered a wide array of topics, not just about relationships, but it's also contributed to the sound of the civil rights movement, the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and so much more. R&B has, you know, helped transform lives, and it's given a voice to so many people who were looking to define themselves in a changing world. But let's be honest, just as the world changed, so did R&B. Now come here, okay? I need you to be honest with me, all right? We both know that R&B has always been toxic, right? Don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger. Now, the whole debate about what is toxic R&B is depending on what you define as toxic R&B. I don't know what your scale is. Is it the lyrics? Is it the content? How do you define toxic R&B? If you're going back to just, you know, toxic R&B is just anything dealing with toxic relationships, then, you know, we can work with that a little bit. Now, I'm not sure if you agree with me. If you don't, I get it. But I unfortunately feel like toxic relationships are very, very common, unfortunately. And because of that, you know, music, it's art. It reflects life. So toxic R&B ain't new because toxic relationships are not new. However, if we're talking content, the 90s is often called the golden age of R&B, but let's be honest, okay? Toxicity was in heavy rotation on the radio back then. You had You Make Me Wanna by Usher, TLC's Creep, and we cannot forget The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica. But even before that, Miss Whitney Houston had Saving All My Love for who? Oh, okay, I'm just making sure. Bobby Womack said, if you think you're lonely now. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a song that started off like, Barbara, this is Shirley.
Barbara, this is Shirley.
And even before that, Johnny Taylor had Part-Time Love, a smash hit in 1963. But I think it's safe to say that toxic R&B is not new. Only difference is, during the golden age, you know, there are a lot more flavors on the radio. So you had Tevin Campbell's Can We Talk, I Wanna Be Down by Brandy, and so many more. Now, don't get me wrong, okay? There are tons of different types of music that you can listen to, especially in the R&B lane now. So we got flavors, okay? Strawberry, chocolate, vanilla. Only thing is, the music that's getting, like, super popular, got a different twang to it, if you know what I'm saying. And to find a really good love song, you might have to do some digging. And when I say good love song, I'm not just talking about, you know, a serenade your partner love song, but I'm also talking about like a family reunion, let's get together and have a good powwow song, okay? Why? That could be because of the power of streaming. Back in the day, if artists were being super raunchy with their lyrics, they wouldn't have their music played on radio or television because that goes against FCC guidelines. So if you had a song that was in dire need of parental advisory, you had to be a little careful if you wanted people to hear it without buying your CD. But nowadays, it's completely different. There are so many platforms that you can listen to raw, uncut versions of music and can't nobody really stop you. Like nobody, not even your mama. But to me, that's only one reason on why R&B has become a lot more explicit. Before it was was called R&B, rhythm and blues used to be known as race records in the 1920s through the 1940s. Race records was a term used to describe vinyl music made by Black Americans and advertised to Black Americans to buy. The rap music we know today wasn't invented just yet at that time. But if it was jazz, if it was gospel, if it was country, and even if you were a comedian, if you were Black doing it, you might have been on a race record. Like, more than might. Like, more, because, you know what I mean? Like, it, yeah. By the late 1940s, race records were rebranded to rhythm and blues thanks to music pioneer Jerry Wexler and Billboard magazine. So now we have this new name and tons of new talent hitting the scene and growing popular no matter the color of its fans. So what happens next? We enter our eras. From doo-wop to soul music, rock and roll, Motown, funk, disco, and quiet storm, rhythm and blues gave birth to many different subgenres, expanding across the charts, radio airwaves, and eventually TV. But make no mistake, the elements that make up what most of us know as rhythm and blues, from the distinct instrumental sound to the angelic voices layered on top of that music, that has been a part of the culture for years on top of years, way before people were making money from it. The sound of rhythm and blues has existed in churches and communities way back in time. But let's move on to how this gets us to where we are today. Now, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, when people say they don't like today's R&B, they say, I don't know, it just sounds too much like rap music. But rap music and R&B have been play cousins since like forever, right? But there was a time where the lines got a little blurred, if I say so myself. So let's talk about when they first merged. Yeah? Yeah. In the mid to late 80s, there was a new tune on the come up, and it was fusing that hip-hop music sound with R&B, funk, pop, and more. It was that kind of R&B you could do the Running Man to. It was called New Jack Swing. Now, before this era completely popped off, groups like Houdini and the Force MDs really laid the foundation for New Jack Swing to become as big as it was going to become. And well, baby, it became. Because of producers like Teddy Riley, Terry Lewis, Jimmy Jam, Bernard Bell, and others, the New Jack Swing era of music is unforgettable. While the sound was bubbling for a hot minute in the 80s, Janet Jackson's Control album is said to have thrown New Jack Swing into the mainstream. If you know songs like Remember the Time by Michael Jackson, Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe, and Every Little Step by Bobby Brown, then you know that New Jack Swing was doing its thing. Now, just before New Jack Swing's primetime era came to a close, we got TLC's Ooh on the TLC Tip in 1992, and that phenomenal group would soon be a part of the era that took over the radio next. Now, for a hot minute, R&B wasn't really that respected by its cousin hip-hop. For a hot minute, okay? Because, you know, during that New Jack Swing era, you know, it was divided. Some people were like, New Jack Swing, it's given very much lovey-dovey, head in the clouds, little too silly for me. And, you know, hip-hop was militant. So they were like, stop that. But the great thing that New Jack Swing did was make the cousins, you know, sit down, have a little lunch, sit together at the playground. And guess what we got because of that? We got hip-hop soul. Spearheaded mainly by Uptown Records in the mid-1990s, hip-hop soul birthed a sound that married R&B and hip-hop in a unique way. Not just from the sound, but the lyrics and marketing. Hip-hop soul is the sound that got us songs like Come and Talk to Me by Jodeci, Real Love by Mary J. Blige, and Fantasy by Mariah Carey. The hip-hop soul era is also when we had singers who was singing like they just left an 82-hour church sermon, but you know they were dripped out like they were going to a fashion show right after. The hip-hop soul era made it cool for R&B artists to be more real, speak their truths, how they saw fit. While they were singing about love, they were singing about the real too. Lust, heartbreak, and yes, toxicness. Now, the hip-hop soul sound was addicting because this sound wasn't like what we were used to when it came to R&B. It was different. Hip-hop soul gave us hits from Aaliyah to Usher, a lot more chill, laid-back records, but still very much R&B. And that hip-hop soul impact was strong. So strong that it had writers like J.R. Reynolds in a 1995 Billboard article asking this question: is hip-hop's growing dominance of R&B an evolutionary step? Or is it displacing traditional soul music altogether? And well, nearly 30 years later, I think it did. While New Jack Swing was getting it poppin' and hip-hop soul was getting it poppin', there was something else bubbling in the music industry, and it was happening on the West Coast. It was called G-Funk. Now, G-Funk is a subgenre from gangsta rap. While a little bit of G-Funk was featured in the DOC's catalog, it is said to have become mainstream when Dr. Dre dropped The Chronic and Warren G's Regulate featuring Nate Dogg hit the scene. That sound would contribute to decades and decades worth of popular songs. Warren G, Nate Dogg, Snoop Dogg, and more all contributed to the popularity of what many call gangsta singing. Now, I wasn't there, but at that time, I don't think people knew just how much G-Funk, New Jack Swing, and hip-hop soul would take a toll on R&B later down the road. But all of those sounds in those eras really helped revolutionize what we know today as melodic rap. Now, don't get mad at me, okay? But we just finished the first part of what happened to R&B and the rise of toxic R&B. I hope that you enjoyed this beginning part of this small series, and I hope that you're following me. I hope that you're like understanding where I'm going with this. If you aren't, you know, that's cool too. But on a serious note, thank you so much for watching this video. You could have watched any other video on the internet and you chose to watch this one, and for that I appreciate you. I hope that you subscribe, I hope that you like, I hope that you comment and tell me, you know, what's your favorite song from the New Jack Swing, hip hop soul, or G-Funk era. And until next time, I'm Hadiyah and I'll see you in our next video. Peace out. Boop.